Virtua Fighter, a game you heard about at least once, especially if you're a SEGA fan. But being a SEGA fan has been more of a job than anything else lately. A job that doesn't pay well, that leaves you questioning, why can't I just get a better job? Well, I need the job, so I get the money so I can eat. But even when I eat, I'm still left starving. That's SEGA as a whole, keeping us starving. Why keep us starving? When's Virtua Fighter 6? When's Nights 3 or Nights Remake? When's Jet Set Radio 3? We got Streets of Rage 4 and Shenmue 3 eventually, but we've been demanding those games for years. An arm and a leg. Is the Virtua Fighter franchise just left to be in games that need it more than it needs them? Or are they doomed, along with every other SEGA IP, to be in crossover games that barely come out? Especially in the mobile area of things. Well, this game got cancelled anyway. But that's what we're here to talk about in this video. What if SEGA plans on making a comeback? A clash not only pushing SEGA IPs of old, but Virtua Fighter into the stratosphere once again. Let's talk about it. Don't dare call yourself a fighting game enthusiast if you haven't even touched a Virtua Fighter game. As for one, an enthusiast of the fighting game genre has to have at least one fighting game, Virtua Fighter fighting game, under their belts. For me, when it comes to personal favorites, Virtua Fighter 4 Evolution is mine. Had many great memories playing Virtua Fighter 4 Evolution, and I consider it to be the best Virtua Fighter. Now, some people might say that's part 3, but of course, like all subjects, it's debatable. And for me, one of my favorite characters to play is Sarah Bryan, along with Lion, and Jackie and Wolf, among many other characters, but those are pretty much my favorites. And I have been playing Sarah Bryan in Virtua Fighter 5 lately, and I can't help but to wonder, what would Virtua Fighter 6 have to do to improve on what they've already mastered? Now, thinking about this, I've also thought about other fighting game characters that SEGA has done in other fighting games and crossover games, like Fighters Mega Mix. And that game was very interesting in itself. It really had a really cool roster and some characters that never returned, that only were in Fighters Mega Mix. So when thinking about what Virtua Fighter 6 could do to push, I think that they should go back and look at this game, as this game has a mix of another game called the Fighting Vipers in it. And for me personally, the Fighting Vipers 2 is probably the best Fighting Viper experience you can get, and they should probably steal from that game, but it wouldn't be called a Virtua Fighter game if they did now, would they? So about, instead of doing a Virtua Fighter 6, you do another Mega Mix. Thinking about the most recent crossovers Virtua Fighter has been a part of, along with Sonic, and this is mostly prominent in the Sonic Racing series, but not so prominent. Ever since the very first game, there have been less and less SEGA characters, and it just became another Sonic Racer game, with the most recent one being Team Sonic Racing. This got me thinking about the chances of a Mega Mix ever happening, or happening again. 2% is what I give it. 2% chance of a Mega Mix ever happening again, and I say that's very realistic, especially after I showed him the example of just Sega characters being generally more and more over the years not important, and Sonic taking center stage very prominently, maybe even too prominently. So, we're not here just to talk about the chances of this game ever happening. We're here to prove that this concept can happen. An All-Stars Mega Mix. Another Mega Mix. So let's do that. When I begin to pitch a concept, I love to talk about the art style first and foremost. It's one of the most important things. You know the graphics are going to look decent, good. What about the art style? I think SEGA has proven in the past games, like the Sonic racing games, that they know how to blend the different worlds of Virtua Fighter, Sonic, and Shenmue, and all these other SEGA IPs together to make a pretty decent mix, you could say. But what about in a fighting game setting, away from the racing game setting? It was more easier to mix people in a racing game setting. But what about the more grounded fighting game setting? I started to take a look at this Tekken joke that Sonic was supposed to be in Tekken. It's an April Fool's joke that the Tekken team has done, and to be honest with you, still kind of salty that he's not in Tekken, because he would have been fun, personally, I would think so. But still, looking at his appearance right here as a joke, seeing all the shadows and the lighting on him, making him a bit more realistic, unlike what he looked in his regular cartoony self in the racing games, I say that there is a certain criteria that needs to be met with how certain characters should feel and look. You see, taking the fighting gameplay from Fighting Vipers, the overall feel of hype from the racing games, and the kind of mix, proper mix, kind of inverse of what racing games has done. So making Sonic a little bit more realistic, kind of fit into the world of Virtua Fighter, and making the Virtua Fighter characters slightly cartoony like they are here, but not as much. I think doing that, you have a pretty good art style. With the lighting, like I said, of this little scene here, I think you might have yourself a pretty decent art style. I hope you understand where I'm coming from with that. But without further ado, I think it's time for us to explore this art style with the gameplay, and among any other things that should be in the game. It's time for us to enter the game and see what an All-Stars Mega Mix could truly bring to the table for SEGA and its characters, and for the fans. So, let's enter the game and find out.
Can you see the sun is shining on me? It makes me feel so free, so alive. It makes me want to survive. And the sky, it makes me feel so high. The bad times pass me by.
Yeah, that was corny, but you get the picture. It's supposed to be lively, you know what I mean, when it is opening. And speaking of getting the picture, I decided to borrow some Sonic Unleashed modding footage to showcase to you in the best possible way what I mean and what I'm about to explain to you when I say that the SEGA Mega Mix, SEGA All-Stars Mega Mix game should have a hub world and multiple hub worlds from many different franchises and series that are in the game, and that it should be in here so it could have a casual appeal to let people have something else other than the fighting mechanics, which of course we will explore. Allow me to do a quick rundown and explain what the hell this pause menu even is. Hub Quest, Quick Match, Hub Options, Avatar Edit, Faction Quest, Hub Gallery, World Items, Icons and Titles, Switch Hub Worlds, and Call a Friend. Yes, it's a phone, and I had to make a story reason for this, but something that's realistic, something that SEGA would do. Something not too crazy and fan-gamey. You see, of course, when you start a crossover like this, you gotta start with your big honcho himself, the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise. Of course, Sonic will be playable in this game. Of course, the story would be a very simple setup. Eggman tries to do something to Sonic. He fails, or he doesn't fail, or he does something that makes Sonic go another place, or Sonic characters go to multiple places. Fairly simple setup. and that's where the hijinks happens, where Sonic meets other characters, and you get to play as other characters and unlock them as you continue with the main quest in the main story. Now, the phone right here is made by Tails. I would imagine you would meet Tails and Sonic very early in these quests to establish this setup. So we have multiple quests. So what do you win with these quests? You win music, concept art, avatar pieces. So I imagine in this game it'll be a big must to customize the character, not your own KAC. That's a big mistake. Don't do that. Customize the characters themselves as you play them. You can switch between the characters yourself as you unlock them, and actually change their clothing as you go. This gives you the casual play some incentive. And within these worlds, or exclusive worlds, like go to a Sonic the Hedgehog world or a Virtual Fighter Hub world, you get to play various mini games, including poker, rhythm-based stuff, Sonic Special Stage, maybe a pinball, Mean Bean Machine, maybe puzzles, bowling, maybe a House of Dead hint, or some kind of Easter eggs within each stage, arcade shooter, darts, slots, high-low, and this is my personal thing, I had a CPU betting, which they should implement. Allow me to explore this a little further. Now, all these things have been seen in a SEGA game before, or a Sonic game before, and would be spread out across different hub worlds, giving you variety with each hub world you go to, and exclusive items you can only obtain through that hub world. And I imagine it looking like exactly what you see here, gaining the prestige, as you could say, as you get to the main quest and side quest. And of course, some quests are specially activated when you go to Pacific Hub worlds, and you can only activate as specific characters, so you have to switch your avatar. And like I said before, you can customize your avatar any way you like. Maybe you can even make Sonic, as you see him now, into Sonic Boom Sonic with a little bit of customization. Now, these mini games do have some, or could have some obvious inspiration from other mini games, like from Sonic and the Secret Rings mini games or Sonic Shuffle mini games. These are very important for casual play. Certain mini games, like I'm not sure if I said it before, but I'll say it again, will be exclusive to certain worlds and certain versions of it. So maybe a easy poker game in Casino Night, but somewhere else it's a little harder or something like that. Let's talk about this Call a Friend feature that I like to add. Now, this is to appeal to casuals, but also make the game a bit more fun. This is a special way to activate quests. So let's just say you call a character, maybe call Amy, and I can imagine a feature where they allow whatever character you choose to have a special interaction. This is a way to have a special interaction with the characters in the game, and imagine maybe even a pre-done text feature, or maybe you could actually text the character yourself with a limited amount of characters, whatever they choose. And also, this is a way of calling your friends to invite them to invite them to the lobby, so you could play these games in like a local multiplayer type of thing, like puzzles and stuff, and racing and darts and slots and poker, and with various other characters. Factions are pretty much character factions, because Sonic the Hedgehog would win. I think world items help you with the quest. I think that type of thing is granted. Now let's head over to Quick Match and finally talk about this damn roster and what this will look like. This one is you guys situated and kind of embrace this roster. Now, this may be a controversial roster, but I'm gonna convince you that this roster that I picked out right here is not only the best possible roster for this game, but the most reasonable one and most fun one that you could probably have in base. Now, you see, you pretty much heard the music if you're familiar with Sonic Unleashed. And now, all of a sudden, I just revealed the stage, Windmill Isle. Now, this is very important, because I truly believe you gotta pick the stage before you pick the characters. Stages play a very important part of this game, or would be, or I imagine it would be. But we're gonna talk about that later. But just know that we pick the stages first before we pick the characters. Of course, starting off with Sonic the Hedgehog and Akira Yuki from Virtua Fighter. These characters are essential, and like I said earlier in the video, we have to bring the Virtua Fighter characters back in some way. This is the best way to do it. Bring them back in the new Mega Mix, along with other characters. Bring them up, bring Virtua Fighter up. Now, will this be the only Virtua Fighter character and Sonic the Hedgehog character? No. And that may be controversial, but we're about to explore that a little bit more. You've seen Jackie in the phone thing I've talked about a little earlier, and you see me mention Sarah Bryant, so obviously these two iconic Virtua Fighter characters would have to be playable in this setting. And, of course, Knuckles and Tails would have to be playable too. See what the thing about these characters is, like I said before, you can select your avatar. Every character that's going to be playable here will be a selectable avatar, and you customize them. So pretty much you can have loadouts similar to Tekken, and have character change their costumes maybe to a more classic costume, or add clothes to them, and pretty much be your own Sonic, be your own Tails, be your own Akira. That could be a marketing point right there. But is this truly the end of the Virtua Fighter characters? And Sonic? No, I don't think so. This may be, like I said, an unpopular choice, maybe a controversial roster, but please, trust me as we get through this roster, there's going to be more Virtua Fighter and Sonic characters to play as. And maybe more space than you think, looking at this little roster here. Now, you're probably wondering, before we get to more characters, what is it going to be, a 1v1 fighting game, 2v2 fighting game? I think that if we're going to innovate, make it a 3v3 fighting game on a 3D level. So, of course, this is going to be a Virtua Fighter fighting Vipers fighting game, right? 3D on that level. But it's going to be 3v3, so keep that in mind as we decide the next roster. Now, introducing more Sonic and Virtua Fighter characters. It seems like we're already running out of space here already. Not quite. Let's take a look at the characters I decided to add. Shadow is a given, of course. Maybe even has some guns in his moveset. Why not? Pai-chan, Kage. I always called him Cage when I was younger, but now that I'm more, smarter, I can say it properly. Kage, Wolf, and Tural. That seems like all the Virtua Fighter characters. We'll get back to that, maybe. One amazing addition that you might say that you might be surprised about is Styx inclusions from Sonic Boom. Now remember the hijinks I said earlier. Sonic will be visiting because of Eggman. This is the obvious story beat that they should follow. The various worlds, maybe even the Sonic Boom world itself, and maybe at that point you get to pick Styx up, because Styx does not exist in the main modern Sonic canon. Of course, as far as I'm concerned, maybe. You might correct me on that if there's a comic or something. Of course, Amy Rose will be playable as well, and if you notice that some of these characters were playable in Sonic the Fighters. Sonic, Knuckles, Tails, Amy were all playable in Sonic the Fighters, and Eggman as well. He would be playable in his machine and all, but these, unlike these Sonic the Fighter versions, these characters would be based off their more modern influences. So, for example, we're going to explore about this a little bit more, talk about that a little bit more later when we talk about the gameplay. But for example, for right now, just to understand, Sonic will have some of his Black Knight stuff, maybe some of his Secret Ring stuff, and more of his modern day stuff implemented to his moveset. Of course, it's time for us to add more characters. And I know that you were afraid there were going to be no Fighting Vipers characters after talking about how it's going to be based solely off Fighting Vipers 2 gameplay. Of course, we got Bon, Grace, and of course, Honey. 3 characters for the Fighting Vipers side. Also, 3 characters. If it's going to be 3v3, you have to add the 3 main Streets of Rage characters. Most likely taking their appearance from older games, but I say it's probably better to take the appearance from Streets of Rage 4. We have Axel Stone, Blaze Fielding, and of course Adam Hunter. Now the roster's starting to look a little bit better, but you're probably wondering, damn, this is going to be a very short roster. there's a lot of Sonic and Virtual Fighter characters. Yeah, and of course you probably noticed Blaze the cat. Now I'm not saying I put her in here just so we could have two Blazes in the games, Blaze Fielding and Blaze the cat. No, of course not. But it could be a very cool power team, I guess you could say. But is that going to be really all the Fighting Viper characters? It's at this point that I want you to embrace this roster. Get your final guesses in as to who I'm going to add. You may not expect at least one character I'm going to add. It's going to surprise the shit out of you. Guaranteed, you're not going to expect it. But one character you will never expect will be on this roster in a few seconds. But yeah, it's going to be a fairly small base roster, especially for 3v3. But like I said, there's one character you're not going to expect. So brace yourself, get your final guesses in. If you didn't already skip to the video part where I revealed these, because these are going to be the last characters I'm going to add to base roster. You ready? Will there be more Virtual Fighter characters? Will there be more Fighting Viper characters? Of course. Will there be more Streets of Rage characters? I think you need about 3. I think Axel Stone, Blaze Fielding, and Adam Hunter are perfectly fine as reps for Streets of Rage. They take up 3 slots. They're good. So, Fighting Vipers isn't, it's funny though that I'm going to add more characters to the Fighting Viper side. And why did I add Honey? Honey is probably one of those characters that are very, very much a must in a game like this. Now, usually, it's pretty funny because the last time Fighting Vipers actually appeared in anything Sega related was in Project Cross Zone 2, where the only playable Fighting Viper character that I believe, so you can correct me if I'm wrong, was Bond himself, and that's where you can see this little image. That's where it came from. Alright. Enough stalling. Here's the rest of the characters. Boom! A total of 32 playable fighters. And each fighter is a selectable avatar to edit and everything. When you consider what we talked about beforehand with the multiple hub worlds and a avatar edit and how you call it interact with each character and all the voice actors that would be involved in the project, the 32 characters is pretty freaking reasonable. But why did I select these rest of the characters? Let's get into that. Starting with the Fighting Viper side. Adding a character called Mauler and another one called Charlie. Both of them originated in Fighting Vipers 2. So we got some Fighting Vipers 1 and 2 representation happening in this roster. Plus, I mainly picked them for their gameplay to have some gameplay diversity. That's pretty much it for the Fighting Vipers at the moment. Yeah, a little hint at something. But, of course, moving on, we get Knights. Having Knights in this game is a must. Absolute must. Probably a grapple character. That could be talked about a little bit more later. We got Bayonetta from Part 1. I don't see her appearing until much later in the game, though. To be quite frankly honest. We got, of course, your man, Kiryu Kazuma. Being in the game, you gotta have at least one Yakuza rep. He is in here. Having Ryu Hazuki from Shenmue is another given. And then only one Golden Axe character. The main bad guy himself, Death Adder, has to be in this game. No one else, really. But let's talk about the other characters. Especially the one giving you a big what the fuck, if you're not familiar with Sega Soccer Slam. But starting with Hatsune Miku, yes, we can make her a playable character. And it should have been more than a hit earlier in the video when I said rhythm-based gaming. Now, you really think that we're going to add rhythm-based minigames without Hatsune Miku, one of Sega's newer, I guess you could say, mascots? We can make her playable, make her customizable. Huge marketing point for Sega. Now, adding another huge marketing point, adding a Phantasy Star character. I'm using this model, but you should recognize her if you're a Phantasy Star person. Alice Landell from Phantasy Star 1 being a playable character. Probably not that one specifically, but maybe the one from the original game. Of course, that's interesting. Being one character, I think, is good enough. And of course, the last character that nobody expects, and you're probably being a big what the fuck, and why are you even adding this character to begin with? His name is El Diablo from Sega Soccer Slam. So why am I adding such an obscure character to this already mega mix here? This already weird mega mix. The reason why is because Football Manager is a Sega property that is very popular. Just to say that. But to add a regular soccer guy in a roster, an already weird roster, not weird, that weird, but to add just a regular soccer guy doesn't make any sense. So what Sega should do is to have a soccer rep from one of their more obscure titles. Sega Soccer Slam, El Diablo. Have him with a moveset. He's like a wrestler type of character with a soccer ball. So he's basically going to be kicking you with a soccer ball. Pretty much what that is. I decided to add him in because he's totally unexpected and is probably the most obscure character here. And there you have it. Your 32 character roster. Are you satisfied? Are you mad? Is there more characters? Let me talk about exactly why I picked 32. Now, 32 characters, when you consider the voice acting and all that, makes a lot of sense. The fact that each character is avatar and customizable makes a lot of sense, and this is base roster. So when you consider all those factors in, gameplay style, for base game, 32 is a great number. It may be small, but I think it's a fantastic number, especially when you can add better options to the other other parts of the game, like the hub system, my bad. Now let's talk about the stages. Now usually in this fighting vision, I don't spend too long on stages. Stages in this game, I imagine, will be one of the most important features. It's almost as important as picking a character themselves. Let's discuss the stages first and what the 2020 means afterwards. Of course, with the series we already discussed, there's going to be stages following them. So, Tropical Resort from Sonic. City Tower is a stage from Fighting Vipers, as well as the Great BM is a stage. Managing them, especially as we go deeper into why I've chosen them, I think you're going to love those stages. I think anybody will love those stages. Green Hill Zone is a given. It's a must. Canyon Cruise, Casino Night, and Death Egg Eye. Very specific stages from Sonic the Fighters making a return. Revamped, redone, expanded for this new Mega Mix game. I think it's a great addition and a nice callback to that game. Especially if you're going to have Sonic Fighters. Well, yeah, Sonic Fighters in the game. Of course, there has to be virtual fight stages. You have to have grounded stages. So before we get to the rest of the Sonic stages, Dojo from maybe the ones between mainly from Virtual Fighter 4 or 3, an island. I know Jeffrey's not on the roster at the moment, but having that's too much of an iconic stage to leave out for Virtual Fighter. Shrine or Arena. That's pretty much it. You gotta have your base level stuff. Studiopolis, of course, from Sonic Mania. You gotta have that. Windmill Isle, we already talked about that. Radical Highway, a must, absolute must. And we go away from Street Fighter and Sonic stages and Fighting Viper stages to move towards other stages like the streets from Streets of Rage. We also got Shinjuku. Now Shinjuku is, if you don't know, a real place in Japan. But of course, this version will have to be fictionized so you can put it in the game. It's going to be from Yakuza. I picked this place, but you could probably pick another place too from Yakuza if you want. But I just picked this place as an example. Imagine that in the stage there'll be a lot of SEGA arcades. Like I said, pretty cool place. I think a lot of people will love it. The Colossal Dome, if you definitely didn't know what that came from, it came from SEGA Soccer Slam. Playing and fighting in the middle of a soccer field is already a cool idea as it is. So adding a stage from that game is definitely cool. Gate area. Now this would be highly ironic if you play Phantasy Star Online, because that's where this comes from. So imagine playing that game, then playing this game, going to this hub area, to have a mini hub here based off that hub area in that game, and also having a fighting stage based in that game. Yeah, I know, crazy. Of course, we get 2 night stages. Castle Crystal and Splash Garden. Splash Garden's from the first night's game, and Journey into Dreams Crystal Castle. I just picked anything. Not just anything. I just thought it would be a nice scenery for the fighting. Maybe you could have some story beats too. Maybe some hub world action in there, possibly from Splash Garden. We got Musical Dawn. This is the stage we're going to be entering next and playing in gameplay from Hatsumiku, and of course Shibuicho from Dead Set Radio. Now, the 2020 thing. Now, if you're not familiar with Virtual Fighter, you should be familiar with that, how their stages is picked. They have short areas, long areas. If you're going to have a 3v3, you're going to have big stages. Because, like I said, the stages are very important. So, depending on what stage you pick, depending what team you pick. So, if a character has certain wall stage moves, you might want to pick a stage that has what's it called? Shorter walls, like maybe like City Tower. Or maybe if you want a more bigger stage, you want to, your character, your opponent picks like a Kiryu or another character that's really fast and that does big damage in a bigger area, not next to a wall. You're going to pick Tropical Resorts. Oops! What's this? I kind of hinted at this earlier. That's right, boys and gals. Let's talk about unlockable bosses and secret characters here. There's an opportunity that I think that could be missed. There is a reason why Sonic Unleashed stage is in this game, and that's because of the secret character that can come along with it. First and foremost, let's talk about the character variations, which are basically secret characters in their own right. You probably go to Sonic to select Classic Sonic. Go to Tails to do a combination of buttons to select Classic Tails. Go to Knuckles to select do Classic Knuckles. Or even better yet, Sonic Boom Knuckles, because the proportions are different. So him being his own character, secret unlockable, makes a lot of sense. And of course, this also comes with Sonic the Werehog. What better and more fitting place to put this secret character than a game where he actually fits in this game? It'd be a nice throwback and makes a lot of sense. Having Honey the Cat here, if you not familiar with Sonic Fighters, it was a secret character based off the Honey character from Fighting Vipers. Having this Sonic-y version of the character not being playable in this game would be tragic, very tragic. Of course, let's talk about the Eggman secret variations. Of course, Dr. Robotnik could be very important to the story too, so having him being a secret playable character is a given. And of course, my personal thing that I want to add is a joke character. Sonic 06 Dr. Eggman would be absolutely hilarious to unlock. Let's talk about the secret bosses here that you'll find in the game and unlock them as playable characters. And now, Del Sol. Del Sol is a secret character in Fighting Vipers 2, so he will return here. You see some gameplay a little earlier. Maybe I might show some right here, right now. He is a really cool grappler type of character. And speaking of grappler characters, we got Go from Virtual Fighter 4. Now, this isn't anything particularly biased towards Virtual Fighter 4. I just think that it would be cool as a rival to Akira that should be expected in this game. Eventually would be in this game as a secret boss. And of course, unlockable. I imagine in this fighting game setting specifically, I picked him because not only is he a rival to Akira, but his moveset could be pretty good within the gameplay we're going to be discussing. And of course, SPO and a character named BM. Now, BM is the final boss in Fighting Vipers. Not having him being playable is, of course, it's just dumb. He looks very similar to Mauler. That's by design and choice due to the story of Fighting Vipers, but he will play quite differently. He's bigger than most of those characters, so having him be an unlockable boss and he could play a very integral part in the story would make a lot of sense. And of course, there's SPO. There's usually probably would expect a Metal Sonic, and I wouldn't blame you. Most likely than not, there would be a Metal Sonic character. However, I chose SPO purely because as a reference to his appearance in Sonic the Fighters, and why not? That's pretty much the mindset there as to why I added him as a secret boss character, and that's about it. So, yeah, let's go on to Musical Dawn and finally talk about this gameplay, our final section in this video. So let's go.
Ready? Go!
Alright, so, like I said, we're taking gameplay notes completely building off of what Fighting Vipers 2 has done more than Virtual Fighter. So I'm going to be explaining the controls here in a second, but I'm going to also explain why you can see character PNGs in the background on the stage, because I want you to simulate exactly what I'm about to tell you. imagine Sonic versus Akira, but usually when you switch in fighting games of now, you switch off screen when you switch with characters. This game will show you the character before you switch them, and will actively have the character come to you to switch. I think on the bigger stages, in the close stages, this is a key gameplay mechanic. Especially, it would be interesting to see in higher stages like City Tower, where you would have these characters on a high building of sorts and have them switch over to you. Now, the interesting thing is, you would probably say, okay, couldn't you get close to them? Could you knock them out? Yes, that's something I would love to see in this game, and that's something I imagine would be here. Now, having the option to go close when you're fighting your opponent, when you're 3D fighting them in a very Fighting Vipers-esque way. When you get close enough to your opponent and your opponent doesn't switch, you could knock out or ring out if possible, and hurt your opponent's team members visibly. So it could be a strategy to get a character out, but if you do ring them out, certain characters can come back from it first time around, or certain characters can save it. So basically this team of Sonic and Tails is there for a reason. I'm going to get into these controls in a second, just finish explaining this. Basically, Sonic and Tails are there for a reason. Obviously, if Sonic, let's say for example, falls off, or the character Kirya on your side of the team falls off, Tails will automatically go to save this character and do it as much times as needed. So that's definitely some important character picking decisions there, to have Tails secondary on your team. Of course, you just saw the control scheme. We have punch, kick, guard, which you need to do super KOs and to expand the move sets of these characters. I imagine, of course, this will be customizable and not mandatory, so you could switch your buttons on your arcade stick or control settings. Obviously, there's guard punch, there's guard kick, and there's, of course, punch and guard is to grab, do multiple grabs. It's going to be as deep as Virtual Fighter, but as simplistic as Fighting Vipers, and as hyper fighting as the Fighting Vipers 2. And of course, we have a switch on the controller to switch to your opponents. So I imagine when you do switch your character, the character will be running up from whatever distance to aid you, and the other character will go back to the corner. It's like a tag team match in a sense, like a wrestling tag team match if you played a wrestling game, kind of like that, in a sense. It's pretty funny because when you think about it on the base level, and all these things on the base level, speed of a character weight, that all comes into play. Like I said, if you go out, if Akira gets knocked out or someone knocks out Sonic and you have Tails in your team, Tails will automatically save you and bring you back into the ring. That's a team pairing right there. That's thinking about team strategy. And if you switch, let's say you're Akira and you want to make a fast switch, you're gonna want to pick Sonic. You know, if you're so he can come in really fast and start hitting your opponent. Character, like thinking like that is what I think would be a strategy for the player at hand, to think about switching, and more than just character matchup right there, or just playing that whole metagame of assist. So I think that's pretty cool. So very viable. It could be OP, maybe not, because let's just say if Tails goes to save Akira and you knock Akira off as your opponent's Akira knocks Akira off, and Tails automatically goes to save Akira, you have no one to tag to. So that could be a strategy of, okay, he's gonna try to go to push his opponent to the corner so he can close to his teammates. Will you tag in Akira to stop this, or and then that hit your opponent's Akira, knocks out that Akira, Tails automatically goes to save him as part of the character thing that he does in this game, but now you're left with nobody to save. So for instance, let's just say I'm Sonic, Super Sonic, transform. How would I transform? You can transform at any time, but of course there will be an obvious disadvantage. He's really super fast, but that may make you predictable to hit in a sense, or maybe a lot weaker when you go into supersonic form, like gameplay mechanics, stuff like that. And as you can see, Kiryu is blanked out here. I imagine a scenario. Imagine this scenario with me. You're playing as Sonic. You knock out Kiryu out the ring, and he's gone for the rest of the match. I imagine this only being one round because I forgot to mention this very, very important feature. Each character has their own health bar. So when you put that into consideration, each character has their own health bar. Each character has specific traits to help you out with assisting and punishing and fighting, and all that. It's going to be good. I think that would be a great system to implement, and already that in itself is innovative enough to make it to a fighting game to make it playable. So I really hope you understand where I'm coming from when it comes to this section of the video. I really suggest you play the Fighting Vipers 2. I think that you will understand it even more so than anything. That hyper fighting stuff, I'm going to show it on screen right now just to give you an idea of what it would look like. Just madness, counters. I completely forgot to mention it. Like I said, there's counters in the game, the Fighting Vipers 2, which could easily be implemented here as well. So it's all about the assist, character switch meta game, and just the game itself. All that implemented together, I think you have a really strong, cool, and fun as hell game experience that should be in SEGA All-Stars Mega Mix. So that's the game, but what about beyond the game? I think it's time for us to talk about the DLC options here. Now I know it's a bit rough talking about beyond the game for a game that doesn't exist, but hear me out. I think that handling this game, the post-handling of this game, it could very well be the thing the game needs to just live longer. Obviously, if it's handled, you get the picture. You know what I'm trying to say. Handling the post DLC content is important. So, of course, you may have realized when deciding the roster, I have most, if not the majority, of all the original Virtua Fighter characters, including the secret character that I discussed from Virtua Fighter 4. But nothing, I had no Jeffrey or Lau on the base roster. Of course, they could easily be base roster if we were being real, but I think saving them for DLC, the first DLC pass is a must, and to expect us to expect a no Sonic character appearance in a pass, first pass for this game is a like, come on now. So Roog, Silver, Jeffrey, Lau, and a Streets of Rage 4 character, Cherry Hunter, Adam Hunter's daughter, and Vise from Tales of... Yeah, so I think that this should be done in passes. These are all the characters that I know people will love to see, and definitely would complain about not being in this game. Here it is. Like I said, Pack 1, 6 fighters. This will be available, I imagine, fairly recently after the game's release, and purchasable, because you know how DLC practices are nowadays. I think that this is fair for Sega to do something like this, especially with 32 characters, and is fair for the characters that is offered is also fair too to pay for. Of course, with each character pack, you would gain some customization options along with a character avatar in the game. Now, of course, we got Omega, Rogue. Of course, I had the Omegas. We had Rogue last time to complete Team Dark. We got Shiva from Streets of Rage 4. We got Gillis from Golden Axe. Gum, Joe Musashi, Gine, Ren, Lassic from Phantasy Star Girl, Rodin, sorry. Metal Sonic has to be in. Ooh La La, Tyrus, Lon D could be Secret Boss 2, Ralph from Phantasy Star 2, and Ichiban. And tell me in the comment section below who you think would be in a pack 4 if you're not satisfied with these. I think that 3 packs is good enough for the game as it is, to be fairly honest. And that just leads me to my final thoughts. If you made it actually this far in the video, I'm surprised if anybody makes it this far. to be honest, because usually I like skippers out there like skipping, missing key information, and then going to my comment section and saying the character's not there when I obviously talked about the character at some point in the video. Damn skippers. I hope you enjoyed this video, seriously though, and I hope you want this game as much as I do. SEGA All-Stars Mega Mix. I hope it happens. I know there's a very low chance of it happening, but I hope the concept here today proves that it can work and how it should work and how it should go. Now, in the community survey today, instead of doing questions on Twitter and revealing you to results, I'm going to ask you on YouTube the questions, and here are the questions right here. So, yeah. Who do you agree with the Sonic characters? How many Sonic characters should be in this game? How many virtual fighters should be in this game? Should there be Streets of Rage 4 representation? You know, should there be Shenmue 3 stuff? Should Landy even be a playable character? What is limited of what we saw of him as it is? I don't know. I think he'd be a great secret boss too, but unplayable. And eventually down the line, like I showed, being DLC. Anyway, thank you for watching this humongous video and this concept video with me. My name is, of course, Shintone. And until next confirmation, I will be seeing you guys. Oh yeah. Peace.
Continue.